What you're about to see is one of the most baffling moments in Congress. Jim McGovern corners Bob Latta with a simple question Republicans should be able to answer, but absolutely cannot. And the more McGovern presses, the more obvious it becomes. This bill was never meant to become law. It was political theater, and McGovern exposes it piece by piece.
Congresswoman Fishbach. Mr. McGovern, you're recognized.
Mr. Latter, as Mr. Pallone pointed out, electricity prices have gone up by 11% since President Trump took office. And just last week, the U.S. Energy Information Administration projected that natural gas prices will rise 16% next year, quote, primarily due to increased liquefied natural gas exports, end quote. So my question is, won't H.R. 1949 further increase LNG exports, which the EIA says will be a key driver in rising natural gas prices in the United States next year? And how is a bill that would help foreign entities import our oil and gas while raising prices for Americans be considered America first?
Well, thank you very much for the question. You know, if we go back in just time, you know, I can remember a day in the 1970s where they're telling us that we didn't have any energy left in this country. And we've been able to change that, and for the better. And it's because, you know, right now we've become the #1 natural gas producer in the world. We can outproduce Russia and Saudi Arabia in oil production on any given day. And what we've also seen is what we've heard in testimony before us in committee is a very simple fact. We're using a lot more energy in this country and a lot more electricity. And so what we've seen from when we've had the RTOs and the ISOs testifying before us, and those are all the regional companies, or like PJM that takes care of Washington, D.C. and 13 other states, is that we've got to have more energy. But we've also seen numbers like in the last year. We were being told that because of the data centers coming online, that they'd be using about 4.5% to 6% of potential electricity and energy out there. And now we're seeing it's well over 10%. It's just going to keep increasing. So we want to make sure that we keep.
Do you dispute the U.S. Energy Information Administration's projection that natural gas prices will increase by 16%, primarily due to increased LNG exports? I mean,
no, I think, and again, I think it really comes down to that if we're not producing the energy in the fields and getting it from point A to point B, that we have to make sure that we have it out there.
So, all right, even if you think this bill is great, I guess this is a question I have. Why did Republicans pass it last year but never send it to the Senate? In fact, last Congress, Republicans passed 12 bills in the House that they never sent to the Senate, and that kind of baffles me. I'd imagine that if you actually wanted to change the law, you'd send the bill over to the Senate after you passed it in the House and not let it languish. I mean, have you asked the Speaker why he didn't send this bill to the Senate last year?
To the ranking member, you know, we passed great legislation out of the Energy and Commerce Committee. And once it leaves the committee, I can't speak for what leadership did on the legislation.
Did you complain that he never sent it?
You know, again, I wasn't the chair of the committee, so I'm not sure what discussions were being made. It could very well have been made, but I wasn't privy to that.
Do you know why they didn't send it?
I'm sorry, what was the question again? I wanted to say something.
I'm just wondering why this bill's so great that we passed it in the last Congress, but it was never sent to the Senate.
Well, because the Senate obviously thinks it's a bad idea. I mean,
yeah, but we said, why not send it anyway? I mean, we send lots of in this Congress, lots of bad bills to the Senate. I'm just wondering,
I mean, you know, look, this is such a terrible bill. I can't blame anybody for not moving it or sending it. I mean, to be honest, I think that what we're seeing repeatedly with the Republican House in the last session and the Republican House now is they just, you know, constantly pass bills that hurt the environment, make energy prices higher. It doesn't matter. You know?
Do you have any assurance that if this bill passes again, that the Speaker will actually send it to the Senate?
Yeah, to the ranking member, again, when the legislation leaves the Energy and Commerce Committee, it's a good, we've passed a very good piece of legislation. We're just waiting, hopefully that bill will then make its way over to the Senate.
I mean, do you believe it should be sent to the Senate? I mean,
Well, absolutely.
Okay,
I wouldn't be here today.
and I assume you'd be disappointed if the Speaker once again chose not to send it.
No, and again, I think that, what we've seen in the past is that we had a situation in this country where we weren't producing energy. And then we're in a situation today that we are producing energy.
I get it.
And again, when it comes to making sure that, once it leaves our committee, then that's the discussion that the leadership has.
I'm just wondering whether we're playing pretend Congress or whether we're playing real Congress. Because if this were real, you pass a bill here, and then we send it to the Senate and ask them to.
Well, I worked on pieces of legislation for a good number of years, and it might take several Congresses to get something through, but, we'll get it there.
Could I go back to answer a question you asked him earlier, that you asked Mr. Latta earlier? I wanted to answer a question that you asked him earlier, if possible.
How many questions ago are we talking about?
I don't know. I mean, the bottom line is, but
The issue is whether or not this bill will actually increase energy prices here, as the U.S. Energy Information Administration projected that the more we export, that prices will go up.
yeah. I mean, I would suggest to you, in response maybe to all your questions, that the reason the Speaker doesn't send it is because he thinks it's a lousy bill that not only increases energy prices, but it's totally unnecessary. I mean, just two things in that regard. One is that, first of all, the amount of permits that have been already approved by DOE for LNG are 3 times triple what the export capacity is today. So the bottom line is, even if they never issued another permit, it would take us into the early 2030s before they could ever possibly export the level that is being advocated here. But beyond that, keep in mind that you can export right now to any country which we have a fair trade agreement with, without going through this process. And the problem is now is China.
Yeah,
In
well,
other words, they want to export to China.
Right. Well,
That's the problem.
Let me make it 2 other quick questions here. 3 other. One is, would you be opposed to an amendment that would require, if this bill gets passed, that it be mandatory, that it be required that it gets sent to the Senate?
I'm not sure.
I mean, I kind of feel like we're watching reruns here.
I guess my question is, how often does that ever occur?
Well, I mean, in the last Congress, we passed this bill, and then it never gets sent to the
Right,
Senate.
but I said, but
And so here we're back again. We're going to pass this bill.
Yeah, and again, I can't speak for leadership, but I know that one of the things I do know is this, is that if we want to make sure that the United States stays on top, that we have to make sure we have the right regulations out in the fields, that these people can be out there producing energy. What we did, what we've seen in the past, you put the stringent requirements out there to a point that we can't produce energy.
I guess I'm not going to
then
get
we're
an answer to my
there.
question, but I'd like to ask unanimous consent to insert in the record a list of the 12 bills that we actually passed that everybody here said was so important that we passed and never got sent to the Senate. And in your committee, Mr. Pallone just referred to it, Republicans blocked an amendment that would have allowed the Energy Secretary to block exports of LNG to China if he or she determines they harm the public interest. Why did Republicans oppose that amendment?
Off the top of my head, I can't quite remember the exact rationale, but I know this is that if the Chinese become more dependent on buying from us, they're not getting it from some other source, maybe if it's like a Russia or someplace else. So it also helps on our trade side because of the imbalance there. So it makes them more dependent on us.
Well, I don't think the Energy Secretary is some flaming liberal here, but my question would be, according to this amendment, the Energy Secretary would, could only block exports of LNG to China if he or she determined that they harm the public interest. I'm just trying to understand, like, why is that a bad idea? I mean, if the Energy Secretary determines that selling that exporting LNG to China is not in the public interest of people here in the United States. Republicans blocked it. I'm just trying to, is there a reason?
And again, I can't go back in memory to that exact moment, but as I mentioned before, that it's important that the United States, if we're selling the energy to China, they're not getting it from someplace else, and they're more dependent on the United States.
And just the final quick, because Mr. Goose is, I think, stuck on a plane, but he brought this up last time. Because the last time we met on bills in your committee's jurisdiction, it was to vote on a bill to reestablish a coal council, even though the Trump administration has already reestablished that council in June. But when we met in September, Mr. Goose pointed out that the council had been reestablished in name only. On its website, if you went to the current members tab, it said, quote, coming soon. Well, I just went to the website this morning, and it still says coming soon. So it's been five months since Trump's announcement, 2 months since you passed your bill, and still there does not appear to be a council. Do you have any update for us on the happenings of the National Coal Council, which Republicans have all said is incredibly important to get up and running? And that was one of the reasons why we dealt with your legislation only a few months ago. Do you have any update on?
I can do this. I'll get back to the ranking member on that. I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, because, I mean, here's the website, and it still says coming soon. So anyway, okay. Well, I appreciate it, and I yield back.
No, thank you very much.
What you just watched is one of those moments in Congress where the quiet part becomes painfully loud, where the political theater gets exposed for exactly what it is. Jim McGovern didn't just question Bob Latta here. He peeled back the curtain on a pattern that has been happening for years. Republicans passing messaging bills they never intend to make law, never intend to send to the Senate, and never intend to defend when the facts come crashing in. And what's wild is that Latta couldn't even explain it. He stumbled through talking points about the 1970s energy crisis, rambled about data centers, and gave every answer except the one McGovern was asking for. If this bill is so great, why didn't your own party send it to the Senate? And that's where McGovern's frustration hits a different gear. Because this isn't just about one bill. It's about a pattern of dishonesty in how energy policy gets weaponized. Bills that raise prices for Americans while pretending to be America first, bills that help foreign buyers but not American households, bills that sound tough on China but in reality push more exports to China. And it's even more embarrassing when you look at the numbers. The Energy Information Administration literally projects that natural gas prices will rise specifically because of increased LNG exports. That's not partisanship, that's not ideology, that's data. Hard, federal, public data. McGovern brings the receipts, and Latta's response? One long shrug. No explanation. No accountability, not even a fake justification that makes sense. And that's why McGovern asks the question that cuts to the bone. Are we doing real Congress or pretend Congress? Because if you pass a bill but never send it to the Senate, what are you doing? You're doing political cosplay. You're doing cable news legislation. You're doing symbolic victories built on real consequences that American families pay in higher bills. And the cherry on top? Latta tries to pivot back to we're producing more energy while avoiding every direct question, including why Republicans blocked an amendment that would prevent LNG exports to China if they harm the public interest. Not a partisan amendment, not a radical amendment, just if it hurts Americans, don't do it. And even that was too much. This is what McGovern is exposing. A Congress that claims to care about energy prices but passes bills that increase them, claims to care about China but promotes policies that empower them, claims to care about policy but doesn't actually move the bills they say are critical. This is why oversight matters. This is why these exchanges matter. Because they're revealing the gap, the gulf between the talking points and the reality. And once again, when pressed, the answers simply aren't there. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe to Left Lens, where we cut through the noise, decode the politics, and give you the story behind the spectacle. And once again, when pressed, the answers simply aren't there.